I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Viss?
Here.
Mr. Burnham will be absent this evening. Mr. Spencer?
Here.
Ms. Kovach? Here. Mr. Niemeyer?
Present.
Ms. Haskell? Here. Mr. Smith will not be with us this evening. Mr. Carnahan?
Here.
Mr. Eberly?
Present.
Attorney Austin?
Present.
Ms. Sandberg? Present. And Margaret Abernathy, Recording Secretary, here.
Thank you, ma'am. By the way, Margaret is like Johnny on the spot dynamite, so I was hearing a hiccup with Sarah leaving, and it has been seamless dynamite, so thank you very much for that. I want to recognize that on the record. Presentation, normally we do an Explore Everyday Community Recognition. Unfortunately, Mr. Papanas could not be with us this evening, so we'll defer until next month, and we'll continue on with our consent agenda. We've got approval of May 17, 2020 meeting minutes, as well as Claims Fund 404 in the amount of $0 and 804 in the amount of $47,236.32. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Support?
Second.
What was the main highlight of that Fund 804 as far as that number?
Looking that up.
You
Trying to
actually
pull
had
that
a
up
few
here.
things come around this time on there.
What's that, Jen?
You had a few things come around this time on there. You had,
Yeah, I see, we got, okay,
you had your facade reimbursements, professional services.
and some engineering, okay.
What was the engineering for?
It was night engineering, that was
Oh, okay, yep,
concept engineering.
yep. Didn't recognize that at first, okay. Any further discussion?
I see that we, Mr. Kubel's been in for his facade improvement reimbursement. I gotta say, it's, driving around the town and the places that we, put a facade grant for, they're really looking nice,
They're looking sharp.
Yes, it's doing what we wanted it to do.
Especially what Brian did to that old laundromat, which was our food pantry for a while.
Uh-huh.
Hearing nothing further, roll call, please.
Ms. Kovach?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Viss?
Yes. All right, thank you. We'll go on to new business. Explore Everyday Community Recognition nomination. We can entertain a motion this evening, or we can wait a month since we have one that's pending. They won't be able to visit with us until next month. So it's the pleasure of the commission.
We can wait.
Doug has spoken. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Motion to defer.
All right, is there support?
Second.
All right, we'll defer that until next month.
You gonna take a roll call?
Hold on, I was just gonna ask that. Robert's rules, on a motion to defer, do you take a roll call? Yes, Jen says yes. Sorry, roll call, please.
Ms. Kovach?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Viss?
Yes. All right, number 2, facade grant extension request, Mr. Hen, 13212 Wicker Avenue, formerly Guard Laundromat. Sir, it's been a month since we last saw you, so welcome back.
Yeah. We're gonna get started on that. Boy, it's looking good. It's looking really nice.
Thank you. The site work became quite extensive from what we anticipated. We're not quite done. I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're pretty well done and complete with the facade grant. I think we have roof, windows, and siding, I think we're on that. But that's up to you guys. If you want to give it an extension, that's fine too.
Okay.
Way there.
So what you're saying basically is because the site work surrounding the building, you won't get the final approval
Yeah, it
of
won't
the
be
building
final
department.
approval until we get site work now. It's in process right now, so.
Okay.
Make a motion to grant the extension 3 months.
Is there support?
Second?
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Ms. Kovach?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Viss?
Yes. Mr. Henn, good to see you as always. Thank you for the fine work that you're doing here in town.
Thank you.
Margaret,
stuff, Dick.
if you get a chance to shoot Mr. Henn a note saying 3 months, that he needs to come back, just let us know. That'd be great.
Absolutely. You're
All right,
welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, facade grant funds policy discussion.
This was relative to the fact that there's only about $2,800 or so left in this year's $100,000 pot of money, and you wanted to discuss whether you wanted to accept any applications for next year's funds, I believe. And my recollection is last year when we got to the point in October or November and had little to no money left for the year, that you wanted to hold off accepting applications for 2021 until 2021. So I believe that's a discussion you wanted to have today, was whether you want to hold off on that and what the future of the facade grant program is.
Thank you for that refresher, Mr. Everly. What is the pleasure of the commission? That is the discussion that we started last month. We had a month to ruminate on it. $2,800 left, depending upon what may or may not happen with folks coming to us and getting extensions or not getting extensions. That some funds may open up yet this year.
Right.
So that's to be
Chairman?
determined. Go ahead.
I think when we're down to a number like this, it gives us a really good opportunity for the second half of this year at this point to really focus on going into 2022, kind of planning our path, looking at some of these larger capital projects that are going to take TIF funding, things like the lake eco restoration, and other infrastructure projects that are a part of that larger capital list. So rather than focusing our meetings on the facade grants, we'll be focused on kind of that bigger picture of larger debt service items. That really gives us the chance to dig into those things. So I would like to see us just kind of put unless funds loosen up because people haven't claimed them, that at $2,800, it doesn't give us a lot of financial flexibility about a $12,000 project, which in today's world doesn't get you much. So I would move that we don't accept any applications until we have at least $10,000 that we can award, which would then be a $50,000 project. So that's kind of just how I was thinking of that, is focusing this last half of the year on getting ourselves involved in that capital planning so that we're funding some of these big picture projects that we've talked about here and that have been talked about in various other meetings.
Motion's been made. Is there support?
I'll second that.
All right. Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Still left the door open.
Yeah, of course. Doesn't completely close it, but it gives us a little buffer here to where we're not focusing on that as much as we are looking at every meeting as an opportunity to move the big picture forward.
Margaret, if you could you put it on our October agenda to assess how much to set aside in planning for the following year? That gives us 4 months here to get to that point, and that gives us 3 years until the start of the new year, 3 months until the start of the new year to assess whether or not how much we want to do for the facade grant program for the following year.
Nathan, wouldn't we want to put that a little, maybe into September, because we'll be adopting and submitting budgets in October?
We could. We've never actually approved a formal, did we approve a formal budget?
No, if it's not a DLGF.
But, no, it's not a DLGF, but I think from a planning perspective, it would be a healthy exercise for us to go through, just doing it internally. I mean, the same goes for like utility. We've never really had utility budgets, which is something we're looking at more closely now because of everything that's going on. It might be healthy for us to plan a study session or something in September to really dig into that and measure that against those capital projects and make sure that we have that broad approach that the RDC has taken since its creation that has funded massive infrastructure improvements.
Yeah, typically what we've done to date is just set the jet, do a folder, set aside
Right.
like the King Drive, and that's
But we're growing up as a
Right.
commission here with a
Yeah.
lot more money that's flowing through it, and I think it's responsible for us to sit down and plan those dollars in a little different fashion than what we ever have.
I'm okay with that, I mean, there's no opposition.
So have like a September budget session of the RDC.
That's fine. Margaret, make that September.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. You don't have to call me sir.
September, right?
Hard habit to break.
All right. Where were we? Okay, actually, we need to roll call on the motion.
Ms. Kovach?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Vitt?
Yes. All right, Ms. Sandberg, you are next. Clerk Treasurer's Funds Report. Take it away.
It is in your packet for you all to review. I mean, really, I'm just waiting to see what we get come the end of this month, what your settlement looks like for the spring. Every other little settlement that comes in, casino, BCI money, everything's been a pleasant surprise this year so far. So I'm holding out hope that your settlement will be
Could you?
maybe as decent as the end of last year, because we were pretty good last year. What you looking at, Bob?
It shows 1,500,001.
That's just a projection.
Right, but, you've talked to me before about that, a lot of that money's already obligated, right?
Well, you guys have 133rd and King, you've got the facade program, we still have some minor things coming in for last year's community crossing, just little things coming in for that. But I mean, yeah, there are some road projects coming up that anticipate use of TIP funds and some other things, so it probably won't be that high unless we get a significant windfall come December.
Okay. So, kinda what, I don't know where to look on here to see what kind of money we've got left. Is there somewhere on here where you say what we've got and what we've got obligated for and what a balance is?
That last column,
Yeah,
1,061,543.49.
and again, that's all projections, because
But,
as we were just saying, there were different things that come up. There have been a lot more,
That's, Bob, that number on that far right column is your net number after expenditures and obligations have been met. But that's an estimation.
everything?
well, yes, but it's
Yes.
an estimate. Because again, as more consultant agreements come up, extra costs here and there.
Does that include in that 270,000 for Lambert?
No, that's a portion out over time, that's
Yeah,
$40,000. That's $40,000 a year over 7 years.
Right, so, but.
I do not have that within this at this point in time.
Okay.
Jen, 2 items. One, you mentioned upcoming road projects. Are those anticipated to be paid out this year? Contributions need to be made this year?
133rd and King, definitely.
Okay.
Rick can probably give a better update on road projects than I. We did have a meeting last week, but he knows better than me.
Right, we
Rick,
did.
what's your thoughts?
And I don't have that report sitting here with me, but
Sure.
the big one that we were anticipating for TIF was the Parish Avenue project, from 133rd to 137th. But what we learned the other day in our meeting was that it's because of everything else we've got going on, the engineering for that is probably another 75 days out. And also, when we first met on this, or at least the first meeting I was in on this, was January 14th of this year. And at that time, we thought the project was going to come in about $800,000. We're thinking now it's more like $1.2 million. We did apply for community crossing grant monies for that project, and we were unsuccessful. At $800,000, my thought was, because of the condition of the road, that maybe we still wanted to proceed with it as a 2021 project. But at 1.2 million, I think it's advisable for us to put it back in the hopper for CCMG consideration and hope to get 50/50 money on it, do the repairs we need to do to it this year to get it through this winter, and do it next season.
Okay.
So that big 800,000 we thought the vast majority of was gonna come from TIF monies is not going to have that kind of pressure this year. And hopefully next year we get the 50/50 CCMG monies for it, and we lessen what we're gonna need on a TIF for that project as well. So,
Okay.
off the top of my head, Mr. President, I think that the King project, 133rd and King project may be the only road project that we need TIF money on.
Only major road project
Right.
this year.
And that expenditure is very minor, something in the neighborhood of, it's even less than that, I think, even with
Even with construction
construction
engineering, I'm
and-
thinking just under 175.
right, yeah. So it's pretty minimal for TIF this year.
Okay. Is it possible, Mr. Everly, in the next 2 months, just to get a pencil sketch of anticipated road projects that there's gonna be an expectation for us to contribute to and what that amount roughly might be?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Second question, Jen, is you mentioned casino monies. What are the other sources of revenue that we have in addition to tax revenue? You've got casino, and what else?
Seeded,
See it?
garbage,
Mhm.
storm to a lesser extent.
Yeah, I see definitely with the extent.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even-
storm is being taxed for several projects, so storm doesn't have much, but yeah, seeded, casino, garbage.
So if you look in that sustainability plan that I emailed, that spells out as clear as I've ever seen anything spell out as all the inflow of the town, what it's used for, and what's planned.
Corby breaks it down really well.
Yeah, maybe review that and, like going into our September budget session would give us a really good idea on how to, manage those outflows and plan those things.
I would definitely say Corby's sustainability plan would be the first thing we look at when talking budget. I mean, that's really your stepping stone and your plan for the future, so you know where you're going.
Right. Yeah, if we can just get the information from Rick as to what future big road projects, that'll be a big help. Guys, any questions for Jen?
Those things, Nathan, were actually included in the sustainability plan, those big projects.
Yes.
Okay.
Moore Street, Parish,
Capital, it's all pulled out.
it's all there.
Okay, good. Yeah, I skimmed it just quickly.
If you get it, I mean, it's a big document, you get a chance on an evening to sit down for a couple hours and really dive into it, it's pretty darn impressive.
No, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Any questions for Jen? All right, thank you, Jen. Proposed loss and damages update. Dave, if I understand correctly, we are still in hot pursuit? Hot pursuit. All right, keep on the hot suit. Industrial park property roadway negotiations continue, if I understand correctly? That's correct. All right, thank you, sir. Facade grant, that's on page 17 and 18, shows the stati of everything. Thank you again, Margaret, or is this Rick? Margaret. All right.
And if I could just let you know, I did hear from Mr. Perfetti today. He is trying to chase down one of the contractors for the final receipt, which is why he has not submitted his reimbursement papers yet.
Okay.
He's hoping to have that to us by next week.
That'll be good. Anything else? All right, then you're keeping watch on a couple of these projects that have not completed yet.
Yes, that's
Okay.
how Mr. Henley ended up here tonight, as I thought he was getting close to his 6 months, which would have been the 25th.
Excellent. Okay, any questions on that front? Hearing none, light pole banners. I think, Rick, you've given us a lot of really good information on that. I was thinking about that leading up to this meeting. I think really the critical question is, do we have the time capacity you ask those towns to organize a project to do it, is in essence where I think we stand right now.
Right, and that question was, how often do you want to look at changing those banners for different seasonal things, different opportunities? Talking once a year like this was intended to be to honor veterans. That's an easy thing to do. If we're talking about trying to do this on a monthly basis, probably too time-consuming to do that. Quarterly basis to semi-annual would be, annual, semi-annual to quarterly basis would be doable likely, because we're talking about 120 light poles around town. So that's going to take a considerable amount of time to be changing those out, but the initial installation is the most time-consuming. After that, changing them is not as difficult, but I wouldn't go after more than a quarterly program if you wanted to replace them that way. The annual and semi-annual are pretty easy.
What's the thoughts of the commission? Genesis of this, I think a couple of us have seen this in a couple of their surrounding communities. Good way to beautify, honor, and recognize folks. At the same time, I want to be cognizant of the time and effort of town employees to do it. And we have to weigh the time better spent in other items.
Rick, you mentioned at the get-go, the setup, are we talking about putting up the support for the banners? Yes. So once that's done, they can stay there. So yeah, they kind of ease into it, get about a quarter or so done. Are you thinking like maybe down 133rd or Lakeshore Drive there?
133rd, yes, in front of the high school. And I don't think I've got that summary here, but I've given it to you in the past. 133rd, in front of the high school. You've got a number of the poles at the roundabout, and then quite a few right in downtown near Dollar General and Sandbar, and then out on 133rd towards Faith Church. There are more poles there as well, but a total of about 120 altogether from 41 on 133rd, from 41 to Parish, and then the roundabout, and then the other two places I mentioned.
What did you say the time it would take once they're ordered to arrive?
Well, for this, not long at all, Jolie, especially if you're going to use some sort of a stock banner as opposed to having something custom made. A couple of weeks is, now, we all know that materials have gotten harder to get in the last 6 months or so, but the last time I talked with the folks at the banner company, just a couple of weeks for them to get us those banners, those stock banners that we're looking at for the veterans.
If we were to do something for, get the ball rolling and get them out there, get that put up in a time, over the next few months, so it's not so much laborious on them during the really busy 4th of July time. So obviously we wouldn't say, oh, in 2 weeks, there's more work
Right.
that goes on in the summer. So, and then I would visualize doing something around the holidays. Because obviously most towns decorate with wreaths, and we do the trees, and so I'm thinking what would go on it next would be something like Christmas. That would be actually 5-6 months if we were to get these out there in August or September. Initially with the veterans. Is anyone thinking something of that nature, or did you just want to do this a one-time deal? Because I'm thinking if the work is putting them up, I think it's a nice little accent to drive around town and see these banners. Are we all in consensus that it would look nice all in all around the town in general? Or a message of some sort? What do you think?
I'll be honest, I have no burn for this, so
Yeah.
I'm just kind of listening and
Yeah.
whatever you guys,
November
Like
11th
you
is
do.
Veterans Day, so
Right.
do
you ought to incorporate it somewhere around there. The chamber does 140 trees that decorate the town, and
Yeah, I always notice when I'm driving through a town and see their giant planters and what they have for their decoration on poles and light fixtures and things like that. It really does emphasize, the beautification, in my opinion, so maybe I'm not seeing, what it's really actually gonna look like. Does anything else go on those poles during holidays or anything? The trees is the main.
Yeah, we used to have decorations, but it got too expensive to maintain them, so they did away with them.
Certainly not the most pressing item on our agenda. But I think I'm agree with you, Jolie. Any community that I go through that does have them and that does them well, it's a good accent to the community. I'm envisioning long-term. One of the items that the engineer that we've talked in the past has talked about is to use color and fabric to brighten up a community. And I can see us long run using this to put our emblem on it as you're driving throughout town. So my suggestion would be that we move ahead with ordering them. And then the next thing would be to try to organize maybe in 2022 a campaign for twice, one for veterans and maybe once, I don't know, a different
Memorial
campaign.
Day, 4th of July.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
4th
have two
of July
different
would be
banners that
another
fly in
one.
2022.
Right,
That way we're not rushing it.
Something that celebrates Cedar Lake.
yeah, I think the
Beginning of our warm
flag,
weather.
I mean, the logo is also a really cool idea. I do, you just, and generally, yes, the ones where I see them a lot, they do have a downtown area.
Yeah.
But I think this would kind of add a little something.
Rick, for next time, could you assemble a proposal to purchase the infrastructure, so to speak?
It's not my thing.
Mhm. Sure.
Yeah.
For the next meeting?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
I guess my brain is figuring, let's get through the thing where we do it, set it up for the veterans and what have you in November 11th, and then just kind of take them off this, so they don't have to go through the winter.
Yep.
And then in the spring here again, we'll go towards a, welcome to Cedar Lake type deal and 4th of July, come join, join the festival and,
Right.
4th of July, right?
Just
And then if he wants to change it from there and go to the, back to the veteran shop, we're set up there.
Yeah.
In the meantime, it's not all at once, this is really gonna be a big job.
Yeah, the veterans also, and doing it quarterly or a few times a year is going to ease on the weathering of them. And that goes back to, which I don't think we have the pricing again in here, do we?
No. And I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head.
I mean, we could try with the lesser quality if we change them out more frequently and see if they do the first round and they don't fade in that, or we can, and then determine whether or not those are the sorts of things you don't know what's gonna happen to them until you actually get them out there, right, Bob? That's what you said happened with the ones you all ordered.
Okay, all right, so we'll look for that information next month.
Okay.
Next, sustainability report. At the end of last meeting, Randy, you forwarded that on to us for review, roughly about 80 pages. I just focused in quickly on our sections. But I think my suggestion would be for us to dive into that. It's really, really well done. It's a great roadmap that tells us what our checkbook is going to look like for the next
It's
decade.
an actual business model. It really puts the town in a position to act like a business.
What's your thought, Randy? My thought is that just familiarize ourselves with it.
Absolutely. And we're all still familiarizing ourselves with each little piece of it as we go into the budget season. We're really going to be leaning heavily on that document to guide us in everything that we do. Discussions we're already having on budgetary items, department needs, personnel issues. It's all centered around its impact on that 5-year outlook. So everything has got to have that balanced approach to it. And that's what this document allows us to do. Stay conservative, stay modest, and then when growth opportunities are there, we will have hopefully the cash balances to invest in things with cash money whenever possible, rather than always debt service.
Any questions for Randy on that front? Good, all right, we'll continue to take a look at that. TIF analysis, Mr. Everly, I'm trying to recall why I had this on here. Margaret?
And Margaret and I were talking about that this afternoon.
When Randy was talking about the sustainability plan, he had mentioned that it included TIF financial analysis, and you asked for that to be added to the agenda to discuss that.
I did, so that falls in line with the sustainability report.
Right.
Okay,
And also, I think with some of the development that's going on and one that's in front of the Plan Commission right now, we need to look at not only the analysis of the revenue under the current footprint, but how to extend that TIF district to capture that commercial park that's moving through the Plan Commission on 41 right now. So that's another part of an analysis that needs to be done, and action items developed quickly. Because once that's approved, we want to set that baseline so we can make the maximum capture on it. And we won't be able to do that unless we're ready.
okay.
You don't want buildings built and then expand your TIF. Got to be done now.
So that's done once they approve the whole plat, Dave? The expansion of our TIF district? Or
No,
when do we?
it'll happen in the course of the processing here.
Okay,
It has nothing to do with them except the timing of where their AV has increased. They can get a partial, or we can get a partial, vice versa, depending upon when our approval kicks in as to where they're at in their improvement parcel. That's why doing it sooner, getting before the ground's breaking or at the time of groundbreaking, is so important.
okay. That's on your radar screen and the appropriate time to let us know.
This schedule will be circulated here within the next
Perfect.
game plan will be in place.
Okay.
I'll visit with Rick first.
All right, next is summer winds reimbursement financial analysis. Following last meeting, there was a request to go to our financial folks, have them assess the agreement that was reached. Beverly, what do we have here? Email dated June 17 back from, or June 10 from Mr. Thompson?
Correct. That's on page 19 of your packets. And Corby took a look at the impact, and basically what he's saying is that it could decrease the amount you could bond for by $335,000 on a 10-year bond, or $600,000 on a 20-year bond. He goes on to say, however, debt service constitutes the first pledge against TIF revenue, so the true bonding capacity would not change. He was going to offer his explanation of that. I'd not had a chance to speak with him directly about it. I did talk with, and Corby's on vacation this week, or I would have reached out to him. But I did talk to Sue Hayes about it. She felt that what Corby was getting at was that because debt service, as he says, constitutes the first pledge against TIF revenues, the thing that might be impacted is our ability to cover the debt service. In other words, we try to cover it by 1.25%, 1.25% of the annual payment.
And if you don't have that coverage, if I'm not mistaken, you have to do a property tax back to make that coverage happen.
Or insurance.
Well, you might have to do
Or
it,
bond
yeah.
insurance, yeah.
Yeah, right. So it was more of a coverage issue that he was referring to here. But that was his take on this. Yeah, and you're right, June 10th is when he sent that to us.
Okay.
It is interesting to look at the numbers, though, that a $270,000 economic package becomes $335,000 in value. That's a pretty stiff number of interest if you were looking at this as a banknote, so to speak. That's a lot of money.
Right. So he points out that there's cash available to make that payment if you wanted to do that. But if you were going to reduce your net revenues on an annual basis by that 38.5, then it has that impact that he pointed out.
Okay. additional information, opportunity to converse with him, or?
Yeah, I'd like him to have an opportunity to explain exactly what he was referring to. Like I said, I had a chance to talk to Sue Hayes about it. She analyzed this and gave me her opinion, but it might be advantageous to have Corby join us at the next meeting via Zoom and explain.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
It might be advisable during our September study session on our budget to have Corby as a part of that, to look at, you know, how we can invest in certain things and maintain a certain amount of budget neutrality wherever possible. Looking at, you know, utilizing some creativity in how we fund and finance things as a way to keep that coverage that we need for those bigger projects and still be able to get some of the smaller things done that are important to people. So,
Right.
That September session might be a good opportunity to have Corby in to really dive in with us.
The other thing to take into consideration here, Corby's treating this as though there's no positive impact from the development of that property. So in other words, the tax revenues that will be generated by this project are going to be far greater than $38,500 a year. He's treating this as though, because he wasn't asked to look at that. He wasn't asked to look and say, okay, how much money is this going to generate for us on any given year, and compare it that way. So he was asked to just look at it as though there were no other extenuating circumstances. So that's the look-see that he took at it. The thing that this sort of brought to my mind was, and I think the facade improvement program is a great one. We did it, Dave and I did it when we were in Dyer together, and I like that. But if 38.5 is having that kind of an impact, what does $100,000 do? That's 2.5 times that.
Right.
And we're doing that kind of a program. So it's something else to think about, like Randy said, at that September budgeting session to say, you know, as good as that is, and we know that over time we're going to recapture that money, or that's the idea behind a facade improvement program, because it increases the assessed valuation of the properties we're helping, and eventually that money comes back to us. It's still, there's a short-term potential shortfall or negative impact to our bonding capability.
A facade improvement program, though, is, if you look at it at its core, it's really kind of a tax rebate, right? Because the TIF taxpayers are the beneficiaries of the facade improvement. So it's really kind of a tax rebate to them in a way. Because I don't know if you ever see the increment that you want to see out of a facade improvement if you invest. And we're seeing some pretty good turnaround numbers where you may see an AV increase of $50,000 or $100,000 to a building based on your investment in it. But as we know in tax collections, what you end up with in that, the nice thing about a TIF is that you get to capture all of it instead of having it parceled out. But it's going to take time to see that net benefit.
Right.
But really, it's more of a benefit to the people who are actually paying the taxes to reinvest into the community for a long-term benefit. So I think it's a little harder to measure a facade grant improvement, but you can look at the cash outlay on a year-to-year basis as a way to balance what else you're trying to do. So there might be years you say, okay, we've got this going on, we may want to reduce that facade grant improvement program by 20 or 30,000 to balance the whole approach.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about in creativity and looking at this thing holistically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a really interesting exercise. I was unaware that our bonding capacity was determined by perceived debt that was on our books or future monies that we would owe, so to speak. So this triggers in my mind, if we're talking about our future bonding capacity, I think critically in the next 2 months we need to start talking in what's the expectation of what monies are needed to be generated for what projects. So then we can have that conversation in September to say, how do we get creative with labeling within our budget so that it's not going to negatively impact when we go up for bid our capacity. That's what I learned from this exercise.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier, about us diving into those big capital projects to really get an understanding developed and going into that September session with that understanding and looking at the sustainability report and creating some guardrails for ourselves to make sure that we know the impact of everything that we do here on the entire plan of the community. Because the TIF district in the RDC, if it wasn't for TIF monies, 133rd would probably still be a two-lane horse and carriage path. You look at everything that's been supported and grown from that, this is a pretty important commission. And it's important for this commission to have their arms around those huge items that are 10, 20, 30-year investments.
I think something that's really important that we talked about so much a few years back, especially when you came on to this committee, to this commission, was the connectivity of things. And I haven't heard us really delve into connecting these various projects that are going on, because we're so excited and we look at, I mean, I visually see what's going to happen on the north end of the lake, and I love that it's up on the hill, and a person, the lights are all on, and you're on the lake in a boat. It's just going to look phenomenal, but where is that connectivity to get over here, again, like we talked about, so that people can, like Lake Geneva, if they have a sidewalk around the whole thing, we have to start figuring out how to get people from various points of interest in this community. And I know you all probably discuss that more, and I'm not involved with that with the town council.
Dave and I have been talking about the word conveyance, I think since my first year on the council, is if you're going to have points of economic interest, how do you get the customers there? How do you keep them there?
Yes.
Right? Those are important things that the RDC does, is make sure that the support of infrastructure is there so that the citizen population here, as well as our visitors, can patronize our business district that will help to create the sustainability of the community. We all know that when there's more business investment in the community, your net AV goes up, your tax rate drops, which gives everything more financial flexibility that's within that, those taxing entities.
But you can see that TIF revenue stream has a mushrooming effect on top of layering and layering and layering. And the west side commercial corridor is exactly that. People's Bank is about to go in. We're going to have 3 or 4 banks in that strip. It wouldn't have happened without the first speculative engineering ban, finance, engineering, the first phase of that project.
Imagine Hanover Central High School with a 2-lane road in front of it on a Friday night after a football game. It would be a free-for-all. That would be insane.
But that's what exists.
But really, our 3-lane road is getting to be too small.
I wish we had the money to build a whole new huge high school, put public works over at the high school building or something, you know?
The pathway that we're on, you know, begs for this mission to have that holistic approach to things, to make sure that we are investing in those things that support community growth and sustainability. This is really kind of the engine behind that.
Part of the reasons we're doing the Route 41 corridor component to the comprehensive plan is exactly that. There's a target area, and your involvement, town TIF funds in that area is going to be incredibly important. It's coming.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
at some of the government conferences, you know, it's often talked about in the state legislature, and we talk about it probably every year at our conferences about TIF impact on school districts, you know, TIF districts. And one of the things that I don't think people that are thinking in that direction see is that if you have a redevelopment commission that is investing in those big picture things that attract things like what Dave was talking about, that mushroom effect of those businesses and higher value items to impact our net AV and then lower our tax rate, it helps all the boats to float higher. As to where if those dollars were parceled out in normal property tax distribution, you wouldn't see that net benefit like what you see by having a higher AV and a lower tax rate. Because that lower tax rate gives the school more room to operate, it gives the town, it gives the county, everybody more space. And without the TIF districts, and I've gotten into some debates with people about this too, and I love this debate, you can actually put quantifiable numbers to it, where the school gets their 48% draw of the property tax, it's still not as high a value as raising that AV and creating that space within the tax caps.
Sometimes it's hard to convince people of that.
Because it's a more complex mathematical approach. But the proof is in the communities that have properly used it. And I say properly because you can completely mismanage it and people won't see that value. But if you're investing in those things that raise the whole value, everybody wins. The school corporations win, the individual citizen taxpayers win, the entire community wins because you can then sustain continued improvement.
What some people don't understand is the sustainability of that AV is sometimes very, very difficult to combat, which means on certain ends, people need to come into an agreement that that they are going to make that commitment with their AV and not turn around and try to change that with little twists. Yes, I'm talking in code.
All right, all good stuff. My one request here is going to be as we move forward, so in July, we're going to have a planning session with the town council and the
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, thank you. Put thoughts together, feel free to email them out to folks, dream a little bit as to future goals, as well as, I think one of the things we did with the project, we have taken a look at in exec session, is just general policies that should guide the redevelopment commission along with the town in the next coming years. So maybe assess some guiding principles, similar to what we did in that project. So put your heads together that way, and feel free to share them via email, and I'll do the same. Tracy, anything from school corp?
We have a lot going on. Our board meeting is moved from tomorrow to next week because our varsity baseball team is going to state. They play tomorrow night at 5 o'clock Eastern time.
They're going to win state.
I hope they do.
It'll be awesome.
Mm-hmm. And
Their
if
record
they do,
is
you'll
better
hear
than the
sirens.
team they're playing.
Not tornado sirens,
But
real
the
good.
team they're playing
sirens.
has a player on the team that's projected to go in the second round of the MLB draft. He's the best high school baseball player in Indiana.
Pitcher or?
No, he's a position player,
Oh, really?
but an absolute superstar.
Okay.
Colson Montgomery.
Yeah.
But he's one player.
You got a baseball name?
Yeah, he does.
The
That is
Hanover,
a cool name.
the Hanover boys, they're a great group of kids to watch play.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they, through the whole game, keep each other going, and it's amazing to watch.
They're gonna do it, Tracy. They're gonna do it.
Cool. Anything from the public?
I would say that we gave them an Explore Every Day recognition, the dock. They closed up, and last week I saw they put a for sale sign on the building. And to show you what's happening, Brian Kubel had a client appreciation day Saturday from 12 to 3. His 100-and-a-half-year-old mother was there,
Wow.
which was amazing, and she looked great.
Wow.
And the place was so packed, people were driving around 2 or 3 different times trying to get in there, just to be out.
I'm gonna go to Rosati.
So,
Yeah, it was busy.
so Summerfest is right around the corner, fireworks on July 2nd and 3rd, and I anticipate from what I saw down there that this place will be,
It's going to be a complete madhouse.
And if you know anybody who wants to volunteer and help, we're looking for volunteers for it also.
I'm telling you, there's so much pent-up energy right now.
Yeah.
Having it last year?
Yeah, so much. It's gonna be insane. I just hope everybody can behave themselves. Oh, my God. I don't want any problems.
Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.